understood the point kind of on a basic level, but it made me realize that I don't have a very nuanced understanding of Inconceivably. So I was wondering if you could talk about both how it kind of lays the ground for our sadhana, and then how it relates to our goal, and how it fits in with the whole theological.
You can wait to tell you the whole philosophy. Yeah, briefly. Well, in a very basic sense, the idea is that there is the Shaktiman and there's the Shakti in Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
En un sentido muy básico, la idea es que en el Vaishnavismo en Gaudiya se encuentra el Shaktiman y la Shakti.
And they analogously might be compared to a generator and the energy that it generates.
Que se pueden comparar a una fuente de energía y a la energía que se produce.
So the energy is not separate. The energy that the generator generates is not separate from the generator.
La energía no está separada por su fuente.
But it's different from the generator at the same time.
Sin embargo, es diferente.
What you can do with the energy that's generated from the generator is one thing.
Lo que se puede con la energía que se produce del generador de energía es una cosa.
Indeed, it's many things.
Y el generador
Indeed, it's many things that you can do with the energy. You can light the lights.
Se puede, por ejemplo, encender la luz.
You can run the blender. make smoothie.
Usar una licuadora, hacer batidos.
So many things.
Tantas cosas.
But with the generator,
Pero con la fuente de energía,
you can only do one thing.
solo se puede hacer una cosa,
Generate energy.
producir energía.
So if we were to take the Krishna as the generator and his Shakti as the energy it generates, then through his Shakti many things are accomplished.
Entonces, entendiendo a Krishna como la fuente de la energía y a la Shakti como la energía producida, a través de sus energías, él puede cumplir muchas cosas.
If we were to separate the Shakti from Bhagavan, in one sense, we would have Brahman,
Y si separásemos
Nirvishesh Brahma.
la Shakti del Bhagavan, quedaríamos con Nirvishesha Brahma.
It exists.
Que existe.
Nothing more to be said.
Pero nada más.
What does it do? It exists.
¿Qué es lo que hace el Brahma? Existe.
It is.
Es.
But Brahman, replete with Shakti, then does so many things.
Pero si se considera el Brahman con la Shakti, muchas más cosas al juego.
If Brahman has a Maya Shakti, then there's a whole world.
Si el Brahman tiene una Maya Shakti, entonces se genera el mundo.
And so many things that are going on.
Y todo lo que ocurre en el mundo.
The Mayavadis do not attribute Shakti to Bhagavan, to Brahman.
Según los Mayavadis, el Brahman no tiene Shakti.
And they say, therefore, there's no world. There is no world.
Por lo tanto, dicen que el mundo no existe.
We don't agree with that.
Pero nosotros no estamos de acuerdo.
And similarly, they don't acknowledge the Swarup Shakti, or the internal energy of Krishna.
Así, de la misma manera, no reconocen la Swarup Shakti o la energía interna de Krishna.
So they don't acknowledge the spiritual world,
Y tampoco reconocen el mundo espiritual,
where so many things are going on.
donde muchas cosas ocurren.
And the power or the medium by which they're going on, that is Krishna's internal Shakti.
Y el medio a través de todo esto, a través del cual todo esto ocurre, es la Shakti.
If we were to stand Krishna alone, separate from his Shakti, he would not be so charming.
Si considerásemos a Krishna solo, separado de su Shakti, no sería igualmente atractivo.
But Krishna is always beautiful.
Pero Krishna es siempre atractivo.
And the reason is because we cannot separate him from his Shakti.
Y la razón es porque no se le puede separar de su Shakti.
He is the very response to his Shakti, which constitutes the love for him.
Krishna es la respuesta o la reacción, el resultado de la Shakti, o sea, el resultado de la forma de amor para él, es lo que constituye Krishna.
In the Gita Govinda, Krishna leaves the rasa dance.
En el Gita Govinda, Krishna abandona la rasa.
And the gopis went looking for him.
Y las gopis fueron a buscarla.
And then he appeared before them as Narayan.
Y luego apareció ante ellas en su forma de Narayana,
With 4 arms.
con 4 brazos.
They didn't think, now I found Krishna.
Ellas no pensaron por un segundo he encontrado a Krishna,
They paid their pranam to Narayan
sino se postraron a él, a Narayana,
and said, what good fortune we have.
y dijeron, ay, qué dicha,
God has appeared here.
Dios ha aparecido.
People may not think so, but we're actually quite pious girls.
La gente puede no pensar así, pero nosotras somos chicas bastante piadosas.
And here's the proof.
Y esa es la prueba.
God has appeared
Dios ha aparecido ante nosotros
to help us in our pursuit.
para ayudarnos en nuestra búsqueda.
It may seem irreligious, but if God is appearing here, he must be appearing to fulfill our desire, so our pursuit must be super religious.
Puede parecer como algo que no es muy religioso y detrás de este hombre, pero si Dios ha aparecido ante nosotros, a lo mejor es algo de más allá que la religión.
So after offering pranam to him, they asked him, which way did Krishna go?
Y tras haberse postrado ante Narayana, le pidieron para dónde fue Krishna.
And Narayan said, with 4 arms, he went that way.
Y Narayana apuntó con los 4 brazos para allá.
So they went that way.
Y las gopis fueron en la dirección de él.
But Krishna was with Radha separately.
Pero Krishna estaba con Radha separadamente.
And then Krishna wanted to appear as 4-handed Narayan before Radha to see her response.
Y sucesivamente Krishna intentó aparecer ante Radha con 4 brazos para ver la respuesta, la reacción de ella.
But he couldn't do it.
Pero no pudo.
He could not manifest as 4-armed Narayan before her because his Dvibhuj, 2-armed form, completely conformed with her love.
No consiguió manifestar su forma a 4 brazos porque la forma a 2 brazos de Krishna es la corresponde perfectamente al amor de Radha.
She is the supreme Lakshmi.
Ella es la Lakshmi suprema.
So she has all the power of love of all of the Lakshmis of Golok, all of the gopis, and more.
Entonces tiene la capacidad de amar de todas las Lakshmis o gopis de Goloka y más.
So the point is that Krishna corresponds with the love of Krishna.
La idea es que Krishna corresponde al amor para Krishna.
And the love of Krishna, that is his Swarup Shakti.
Y amor para Krishna es lo que llamamos Swarup Shakti.
So we have the generator and we have the energy that it generates.
Así que hay el generador y la energía generada.
And because of that, we have a moving Brahman.
Y debido a ello, tenemos lo que llamaríamos el Brahman que se mueve,
Who's dancing.
que danza, right?
We also have a real material world.
Asimismo tenemos al mundo material que es real
The influence of his Maya Shakti,
por la influencia de su Maya Shakti,
which is pretty reasonable,
lo que es razonable,
because we certainly feel that the world is there, objective world, and real.
porque tenemos el sentido de que el mundo existe, que es objetivo, es real.
It's a hard pill to swallow if our philosophical pill says that the correct vision is that there is no world, material world.
No saldría muy difícil de digerir, de comprender si una filosofía que nos dijera que el mundo en realidad no existe.
There's no individual you,
Que no hay un individuo.
and there's no spiritual world either.
Y que no hay mundo espiritual tampoco.
Whereas if we say there is a world, but it's not what you think it is,
Pero si decimos que sí hay un mundo, pero no es lo que pensamos que es,
that's more reasonable.
eso es más razonable.
Corresponds more with our experience.
Y corresponde más con nuestra experiencia.
If we say that we are individuals, but we are not the individual that we think we are, that is a product of the body-mind complex.
Si decimos que somos un individuo, pero no somos el individuo que pensamos ser, sino un resultado de la interacción entre cuerpo y mente.
We may have a false idea about ourselves, ahankar,
Podríamos tener una idea falsa de nosotros mismos, lo que llamamos ahankara,
but we have a very real idea, ahamatma, I am.
pero también hay una idea real, ahamatma, o sea, yo soy.
We often say, I'm not this or I'm not that,
Muchas veces decimos no soy esto, no soy lo otro,
but I am, that's for sure.
pero sigo siendo, esto es por cierto.
It's a very strong human sensibility.
Es un sentido muy enraizado en el ser humano de que él existe.
And the scientific community is just now finding out that this I am also seems to exist in other species of life.
Y la comunidad científica está descubriendo justo eso ahora que este sentido de que yo soy también se da en algunas especies animales.
Even insects.
Hasta los insectos.
And the idea that if I am, that there might be a world where I could be what I am, and all that I could be, that also makes sense to us.
Y la idea de que si yo soy, puede haber un mundo donde yo soy y donde todo tiene sentido.
So we have Maya Shakti, Jiva Shakti, Swarup Shakti.
Así que hay la Maya Shakti, la Jiva Shakti y la Swarup Shakti.
And these ideas are all found in the scriptures.
Y todas estas ideas se encuentran en nuestras escrituras.
So, when we speak of the Chinti-Bheda, then we're speaking of this type of conceptual orientation as opposed to Advaita Vedanta, or other forms of Vedanta that are Vaishnava forms of Vedanta.
Cuando hablamos de Chinti-Bheda, estamos hablando de
We're speaking about our worldview, which is different from the Advaita Vedanta worldview, or the Vishishta Dvaita worldview, or the Dvaita Dvaita.
Nos referimos a una manera de ver al mundo que es diferente, que nos diferencia de otras maneras de ver el mundo, como la Advaita, Vishishta Dvaita, o otras que son siendo Vaishnava.
I've contrasted our worldview with that of the Advaita Vedanta briefly here for the moment.
Antes comparé a nuestra visión del mundo con la de la Advaita Vedanta.
But in the great school of Vedanta, there are other nuanced forms of Vedanta that constitute different worldviews, which are all derived from different interpretations of revelation.
Sin embargo, en una visión más compleja del Vedanta se encuentran más escuelas que se acercan que analizan el Vedanta de manera diferente.
And the Chinti-Bheda worldview is one that takes the scripture more or less as it is, with regard to these two issues of immanence and transcendence, unity and diversity, which are contradictory terms,
Y la escuela de la Chinta Bheda es una que se enfoca en estos aspectos de la inminencia y trascendencia y todo lo que se contradice.
what we find is that other forms of Vedanta try to reason about the unity and diversity and do away with one. Advaita Vedanta does away with the difference. Dvaita Vedanta does away with the oneness. And there are other forms of Vedanta, all of which try to reconcile these polar opposites, these contradictory notions. Whereas in the Chinta Bheda we don't try to do away with them. We say that reality is both at the same time, which is like, that transcends our rational faculty.
Las otras escuelas que no son la Chinta Bheda se enfocan en ese tema, en la contradicción o digamos el contraste entre diversidad y unidad, dándole más importancia a la unidad en una escuela o en otra dándole más importancia a la diversidad, pero la nuestra es la única que los analiza de la misma forma diciendo que las dos existen o tienen importancia al mismo tiempo, lo que es inconcebible.
Reality is unified and diverse at the same time, immanent and transcendent, one and different. And we say, and how is that possible? We say, because reality has achintya shakti, inconceivable powers, by which it can do things that otherwise would not be possible and don't fit between our ears.
Según nuestra filosofía, la realidad es al mismo tiempo inmanente y trascendente, unida y unificada y diferenciada al mismo tiempo. Y es posible a través de esta achintya shakti, significando inconcebible, porque la realidad tiene poderes y maneras de expresarse que no caben en nuestro poder de razonar.
So, in a sense, we don't impose our reasoning on the environment and try to force it to fit within the framework or the limitations of our reasoning. We acknowledge that the scriptures speak beyond reasoning about something that's possible because of the inconceivable Shakti of Bhagavan.
En otras palabras, no tratamos de forzar al ambiente, al mundo, para que quepa en nuestra razón.
And so we read the Bhagavatam, for example, and we find here is a story about Krishna. He's tied up by Mother Yasoda. Mother Yasoda tries to tie him up, but every time she tries to tie him up, the rope is 2 inches too short.
Y eso es lo que nos enseñan esas escrituras todo el rato, como por ejemplo la historia de Krishna, cuando Yashoda trataba de darle la cinta y la cuerda siempre era demasiado corta.
He appears to be outside of everything in front of her.
Él aparece como si estuviera enfrente de ella.
But at the same time, he shows that everything is inside of him.
Pero al mismo tiempo le enseñó de que todo se encuentra dentro de él.
Because no matter how big she makes the rope, it won't fit around him.
Porque a pesar de cuánto mecate iba juntando, nunca acababa.
So he's very immanent, right before her, right in the world with her.
Así que Krishna era al mismo tiempo muy inmanente, o sea, ahí enfrente de ella.
And completely transcendent at the same time. Everything's inside of him.
Y completamente trascendente al mismo tiempo, porque todo se encuentra dentro de él.
Everything's in him. He's outside of everything at the same time.
Todo se encuentra en él y él se encuentra fuera de todo al mismo tiempo.
And there are many examples.
Y así hay muchos ejemplos.
Mother Yasoda looked inside his mouth to see if he was eating dirt.
Madre Yasoda miró dentro de su boca para ver si había comido algo.
She saw the whole world inside of him.
Y ahí vio a todo el universo.
So these stories from the Bhagavatam speak, if we accept them as they are explained, they speak to us of this Achintya Bheda Bheda idea.
Entonces todos estos cuentos del Bhagavatam, si los aceptamos por como vienen, nos explican este concepto de la Achintya Vedānta.
And so, understanding this Achintya Bheda Bheda is, in a sense, is very basic to our Sambandha Gyan, conceptual orientation. It's our worldview.
Entender este Achintya Bheda Bheda se encuentra a la base de lo que es comprender nuestro Sambandha Gyan, o sea, como nuestro conocimiento básico.
There was a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Gaudīya Vedānta whose secular name was Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor.
Había un discípulo de Saraswati Thakur de nombre O.B.L. Kapoor.
And as a young man and disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, he wrote a PhD dissertation on Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Y cuando era joven, en cuanto académico, escribió una disertación sobre el Vaishnavismo Gaudiya.
Probably in the early 1930s.
En los años 30 por ahí.
And one of the chapters was about Achintya Bheda Bheda.
Y uno de los capítulos era sobre la Achintya Vedānta.
So he, in very philosophical language, and it's written in English, he explained the four types of Vaishnava Vedanta and the non-theistic Advaita Vedanta and also Achintya Bheda Bheda. And he showed very nicely in the article how Achintya Bheda Bheda, the Achintya, the Shakti, inconceivable Shakti of Bhagavan, resolves issues that are not fully resolved in the other schools, and particularly this issue of immanence and transcendence.
En este capítulo en inglés ilustró muy bien cómo esas cuatro escuelas de Vedanta devocional, así como la Madhuvani, se enfocan en ese tema de diversidad y unidad, y cómo la de Achintya Bheda Bheda es la única que reconcilia este tema.
You showed how each of the traditions had a word at the core that tried to deal with the issue. Avachanirya, what's the Ramanuja one? Vishesh from Madhva's philosophy. I forget the term for Ramanuja. Another term. All of these terms didn't, in his article, as comprehensively address the issue as the word achintya in Achintya Bheda Bheda.
Y él enseñó como cada escuela de Vedanta tenía una palabra para hablar de este asunto que en su opinión no alcanzaba a explicar el tema tan bien como el concepto de achintya.
And how it constitutes more of a acceptance of the environment as it is, rather than trying to, again, impose our reasoning upon it to make it fit.
Que nos habla de una manera de aceptar a nuestros entornos, más bien que una manera de imponernos.
It doesn't mean that well, we just say it's inconceivable, and then we don't say anything more. It just means how it functions is by inconceivable power. And we can set examples. We can say there's the fire and heat and light. Heat and light are energies of the fire. They're one with the fire, but they're different from the fire also. Many examples we can find of this in nature and so forth. But how they are so is the idea by the inconceivable Shakti of Bhagavan.
Aceptar que es inconcebible no quiere decir que aceptamos más sin hablar.
So we don't also isolate as God as one different, but there's a unity and diversity throughout, so to speak, existence.
Asimismo, no tratamos de ver a Dios como unificado o diferente, sino que hay maneras de ver las dos cosas reconciliadas en él.
This is just a very, superficial explanation of a very complex philosophical worldview.
Pero esta es una explicación muy superficial de una manera de ver el mundo muy compleja y filosófica.
But that chapter in the book of Dr. Kapoor was the one that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his guru, liked the most.
Sin embargo, aquel capítulo de ese libro fue el que su guru, Shyamasundar, apreció más que todo lo demás.
So it's worth reading.
Entonces merece la pena leerlo.
But you have to have a mind for it. It's philosophical language and terminology and ways in which words are used that, unless you're familiar with it or you educate yourself, it may be difficult to penetrate.
Pero hay que tener una inclinación para ese tipo de lenguaje y de maneras de discutir muy filosóficas.
But these are mystical perspectives on the metaphysical nature of reality.
Esas son perspectivas metafísicas sobre la naturaleza de la realidad.
And they all seek to validate themselves with reference to the Eastern revelation, the sacred texts. They seek to validate themselves in relation to these philosophies, these worldviews, these forms of Vedanta. They seek to validate themselves in relation to the sacred scriptures, the Eastern revelation. Here's my view, and then I seek to corroborate it with revelation, to validate it.
Estas cuatro escuelas de Vedanta tienen la validación de las escrituras mismas.
I don't know if I answer your question, but yeah.
Am I correct in understanding that it's a particularly Gaudīya?
Yes, entirely. Chintamata is totally the Gaudīya metaphysic.
Y esta Shyamasundar Veda es enteramente pervertida de los Gaudíyas.
And so you have Vishishta Dvaita, Dvaita Dvaita, you have Shuddha Dvaita, Advaita. Amongst the schools of Vedanta, they're all different worldviews named as such. Similar today, you have dualism, non-dualism, you have categorical non-dualism, you have a panpsychism, you have all kinds of philosophical perspectives on the nature of reality. And so it's a similar school, but it has conclusions that are not materialistic, reductive, like many of them are today, not all of them.
Cada escuela, cada central tenía su filosofía, Vishishta Dvaita, Advaita, etc. Así como hoy día hay correspondientes más modernos, orientales, dualismo, panpsiquismo, etc.
And at the time of the Goswamis, you also had other philosophies besides these different schools of Vedanta. You had the Sankhya worldview perspective, the yoga perspective of Patanjali, the Vaisheshika perspective, the Nyaya perspective of Gautam, and so forth. These were prominent philosophical currents of thought at the time that all had a name attached to them.
Al tiempo de los Goswamis también había otras filosofías, como la de la Nyaya, la lógica de Gautama y Sankhya y otras.
I believe that the actual phrase itself, Achintya Bheda, was coined by Jiva Goswami, who is considered like the Tattva Acharya of Gaudīya Vaishnavism.
Si no erro, fue Jiva Goswami que ideó, que vino con este término en su propia vida.
You find something similar in the work of Sanatana Goswami, but I think the actual term altogether, Chinta Beta Beta, come from the pen of Jiva Goswami.
Algo parecido se encuentra en las obras de Sanatana Goswami, pero así como está Chinta Beta Beta, se encuentra en los libros de Jiva Goswami.
So it's our meta-narrative.
Esa es nuestra narrativa.
The worldview like coming from Sri Chaitanya, that correct, like you were saying, it's coming, it's trying to explain an experience. It's just like,
Well, it's trying to explain a particular reading of Revelation, particular it's an interpretation of Revelation that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was appearing within.
Es una manera de explicar la revelación, una manera de leer la revelación en la que Chaitanya Mahaprabhu apareció.
It's what he's about in philosophical terms. We can speak in theological terms, and there's some, of course, overlapping and so forth. So we can speak about it in terms of tattva or in terms of bhava, different ways. It's a kind of a tattva explanation.
Esa es la manera filosófica de hablar de la realidad de Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. También se puede hablar sobre ella de manera considerando el bhava, el tattva.
So as I often say, that the bhava arises out of the tattva.
Como siempre digo, el bhava surge del tattva.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was arising out of this tattva.
Entonces, la personalidad de Chaitanya Mahaprabhu surge de esta concepción.
And it really very much hinges on the word Shakti. This is like underscored, Shakti.
Y la palabra llave es Shakti.
Goswamis will refer to the Upanishads, Parasya Shakti Vibhadai Vishayate Shretashvatara Upanishad, references to Shakti in the Shruti, and then they take it to the Bhagavatam and then unpack the whole idea.
Los Goswamis se refieren a la Shruti de los Upanishads cuando hablan de Shakti y luego también del Bhagavatam y de ahí elaboran aún más sobre el concepto de Shakti.
Sometimes it's also called Shakti Parinamavad.
A veces se le dice también Shakti Parinamavad.
With regard to the world. The world is a transformation of the Shakti of Bhagavan.
Refiriéndose al mundo, o sea, el mundo es una transformación de la Shakti de Bhagavan.
It's not that Brahman becomes transformed.
No es que el Brahman se convierte en algo.
He has Shakti, the Shakti transforms.
El Brahman tiene Shakti y la Shakti es la que transforma.
Because you can't transform Brahman. So what is the Dvaita? They say, what's their vad? I'm rusty on, I can't remember the term, but that's another term, but in relation to this world. Again, it's how I began. Because of the Shakti, then wonderful things are happening. Brahman is those Shaktis aren't different from Bhagavan, but at the same time, they are. They're one and different.
Las Shaktis no son diferentes de Bhagavan, pero al mismo tiempo lo son.
To help, yeah. Okay. What else? ¿Y qué hora es?
7:25. sexual life.
Our other guests are Samurai. Safe. Oh, okay. Too much fun. Sri Achinti Shakti ki jai. Sri Krishna Balaram ki jai. Guru Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.